So Jason, why do you serve?
2.5 years ago, I stood here and gave my why I serve, and I talked about commitments and, all my other reasons for serving. And at the time, I was 10 months into my first year as president of the Board of Trustees, and in my third year on the Board of Trustees. It wasn't my first time serving on any board, but I was new to this position, and I was really still learning my job. 2.5 years ago, nothing was really different than anything I had been doing as I'd served at any point in time in the last 30 years, and it's hard to believe I've been doing this for 30 years, but here I am. The last time I spoke about why I served, like I said, it was November of 2019. And at the time, me, none of us, we really didn't know that 4 months later, everything was going to change. Everything I learned and was learning still about my job was literally going to get pushed aside as this church and the world that we live in began to recognize that nothing was ever going to be the same again. I started up here then, and I talked about serving, I talked about choices, and the ultimatum that Mark Haskell gave to me. Basically, she said, take what you're doing seriously or don't do it. That's basically what I did. 30 years later, here I am, still doing it. Last time I talked about this, I talked about how the people that were here inspired me to do it. I talked about those that came before me that are no longer here. People like Don Harney, Ray Brennan, Ted Kessler, and a lot of others. People that lived their faith every day, not just on Sunday. Church was central to their lives. Everything they did in their life, they either did for or because of the church. When they were here, the church in general, not just Riverside, was really thriving. But now, churches generally, and Riverside too, are struggling. And the last 2 years have done absolutely nothing to help it. As a member of the joint board, especially over these last 2 years, I've seen how hard it is to make a church actually work. Trying to keep traditions intact, keep everyone happy at a time when division seemed to be the norm, made the job of being a joint board member, a pastor, or a Sunday school coordinator, just to name a few things, that much harder. And there was a point where I was just simply ready to quit, pack it in. I even told Rebecca at one point that I was stepping down as president of the board. I was tired of literally everything. I was overwhelmed, and I didn't know how to fix it. None of what was happening, or what has happened in the last 2 years, was anything that any of us had ever gone through before. And now, it was more than just church. There were politics, and division, and hurt feelings, and anger to go along with trying to make church work for everybody, which was a near impossible task. Never mind that things just kept breaking. It seemed like someone was out to fix a broken air conditioner or a water heater on a weekly basis. Rebecca called me consistently saying, hey, this is broken, you need to call somebody. And where in the world was that money going to come from? It seemed like over the last 2 years, everything that could break did. And I know things break, geez, all at once, and that's where we were. But that was still secondary to COVID-19 and everything that came with it. Masks, vaccines, closing our doors, worshiping indoors, worshiping outdoors, 1 service, 2 services. When's it okay to get back to normal? And more importantly, what is normal? Joint board meetings were not so much about church as they were about health and safety measures and seemingly endless discussions about what was right for everyone, as opposed to what one individual or one group of people wanted. Serving on the joint board was and still is hard. It was exhausting. And I think that I wasn't alone when I asked myself, why am I doing this? So, why am I doing it? Why do I serve? What's different now as opposed to November 19, when I did this the first time? Well, I really don't know the exact answer to that. It's still a choice, and it isn't a choice that should be taken lightly by anybody, because it's also a responsibility. Like I said, I've been doing this for 30 years. I served on either the board of elders or the board of trustees pretty regularly at that time. And you'd think that I'd be good at it by now, right? Well, let me tell you, It's a learning process every single day. And that's as much part of it as anything. I'm still learning. I've also had the privilege of serving on Eastern District Synod. That experience, although done on Zoom, opened my world up to a new and different experience. And I realized that there are hundreds of people who are serving right now across this church, across the Moravian Church, that are serving because they share a vision for the Moravian Church that is more than the four walls that we're sitting in. I'm serving because I want this church to still be here in 20, 30, and 30 years and well into the future. And I'm serving because of the people that are here that have worked so hard to make this work, when, especially in the last 2 years, they could have just packed me in and walked away. I have 10 months remaining on this term on the Board of Trustees. And yeah, I'm ready for a break. But in the time I have left, I'm serving because there are people here who want to do the work, even though they feel the same way as I do, and probably most of us all do. And I had to walk away from it because I was tired, overwhelmed, hurt, or because the work was just too hard, or whatever the reason. I think I would have probably let them and this church down. Because who am I to put in the middle of it? I want to be part of that work. It's a lot. It's overwhelming, but sometimes it's necessary. And that's why I serve.